Welcome, everyone, to episode 134 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, and forgive me if I'm a little bit grumpy. I was pulled away to record this from my favorite pastime, which is kissing my gold crucifix. But I mean, what can I really say? The light of God attracts me. But I do want to know who is tending this flower garden with me.
Well, evil, thy name is Steve Guntley. And this is the podcast about devil's touch flowers, love burials, and great sex with God. That's because this is the podcast about Catacombs, a hard-to-find demonic thriller from the director of Puppet Master and Tourist Trap. I need to go ahead and apologize for my autocorrect there. I meant to say live burials, not love burials. I don't know what a love burial is, so don't add us, I guess. Our guest today, we've had him down in the cellars, we've had him up in outer space, and now we're bringing him back down underground to the catacombs. Who is joining us here today?
Yes. Well, he is a third-time guest of the show. Last time I called him, I believe, the most vicious-lipped of all of our returning guests. He is one half of the wonderful hosting team of Good Times, Great Movies. You've heard him on that show. You've heard him on this show. It's Doug McCambridge. He's back again for a third time, a three-peat, if you will. Doug, what's going on?
Guys, thank you for having me back. If I could always just be referred to as the vicious lip, that would be amazing. I'm all on
just
board
one
with
of them.
That. Right, yes.
The vicious lip, the southern dandy.
And I'm happy to be back underground in the catacombs. We can get, I don't want to get us off track right away.
Oh, please do.
We can get into this because I got my movies mixed up in my head.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Jared, you and I were going back and forth. You had reached out to, not to, pull back the curtain here so people know how this works. You reached out to me and said, "Hey, we had somebody cancel. Can you jump on?" I couldn't. And it was for this movie, but I was like, I love Catacombs. I have it. I have the Blu-ray. I'll come on. So then I put the movie on. Jared, I knew the director. I was prepared to watch and to then talk about the Klaus Kinski crawl space. It started. I'm like, what the hell is this? What is happening right now?
Well, first and foremost, you need to write a formal apology letter to both us and Joe and Sean of Movie Dumpster, who were our guests on the show for when we covered that classic. I will call it a classic movie with even more classic backstory and turmoil behind the scenes. I mean, that's a fascinating one.
Yes.
And, David Schmoller is sort of a lightning rod for, if not controversy, at least interest in behind the scenes stuff. Like, I find a lot of his movies, even when they don't quite work, like Netherworld or something like that, I find a lot of stuff to discuss in them. So I guess instinctively, I would want to say, like, I'm sorry that you're not doing Crawl Space and you're doing this, but I'll be honest, I don't really feel that way.
I wouldn't apologize. I will apologize to all of you because this is embarrassing. I am a listener of this show. I should have rememred the crawl space.
Well, that's up for debate now. I mean, you.
Yeah, I'm starting to doubt your credentials here. Yeah.
Well, let's not worry about. I don't know what this is about.
You know what? I think that is kind of in keeping with the tone of this episode, though. I don't know if you managed to get around and watch the actual Catacombs movie that we're talking about here, but this is kind of a weird cursed object, and I'm using that word very specifically. You'll find out why. That was one of the more unpleasant viewing experiences I've ever had, just in terms of trying to physically consume this media. One of the more unpleasant experiences I've ever had with that. And that being said, I still kind of came away with a favorable opinion of this movie. So I'm glad we stumbled upon it somewhat, one way or another. And also, if anybody hears a minor echo on the recording, just imagine that we are in a catacomb right now. We're just saying this is part of the 4D experience. That's not a technical error. It's an intentional bit of engineering I'm doing.
Well, if anyone wants to know specifically, I'm laying on the floor with my crucifix, so you might hear me echo a little bit.
He's like a moth to this crucifix. I swear to God.
Yeah,
like
well,
he's just drawn to this light of God.
The acoustics in this room are great.
They're great. They're great.
Somehow you're also floating by yourself, which is very strange. There's you on the ground, scratches all over your face. I love it.
And you should really have a spotter if you're floating. You know, you really should have somebody like watching out for you. You might fall. Just saying, it happens.
Well, I don't usually go this line of questioning, but like we came in and, we started talking immediately about the movie. A lot of times when we have a guest, more often than not, it's a first-time guest. We get their origin story about, when they discovered horror movies, when they discovered Full Moon, their relationship, all that stuff. This is a little bit different. Doug, you've been on the show a few times. I guess very quickly, we're curious. I'm sure our listeners are curious. The Vicious Lips was probably about 1.5 years ago that you were on. What have you been up to since then? Anything of note?
No, nothing of note at all. I hope your listeners weren't expecting anything worthwhile. Weren't expecting me to say anything interesting. No, still going with the podcast. We actually hit our 10-year anniversary.
Incredible.
Of the podcast back in May. Can't believe I've been doing it for 10 years, or we've been doing it for 10 years. But as I've said before, we very early on, we knew what we were capable of. And we were like, every other week, like, is that cool? Do you think we can handle that? So at some point soon, you guys are going to lap us, with numbers of episodes. But 10 years of doing anything, I think it's more than I've ever held down a job. So
yeah,
a big accomplishment.
Yeah, I'm with you.
No, it's certainly an accomplishment. And like we recently had Gina Radcliffe from the Kill by Kill podcast on to talk about Metal Storm. And she was mentioning how Kill by Kill just celebrated their 9th anniversary. And they're a really prolific show. And I was thinking about that and I was like, man, every once in a while, like I start to feel proud about the work that Steve and I do and how, we've been able to get all these out every single week. And then, almost once a month or every other month, there's a bonus episode. So we've been really good at sticking to this schedule and staying on schedule and putting out now, this, as I said, at the beginning is episode 134. And then I hear other like podcasters are like, yeah, we're getting our 400th episode, our 500th episode. I'm like, man, we haven't done shit.
We're infants. Yes. Yeah. We're not even there yet.
Every single time I'm trying to plan out an episode, I'm like, Jimmy, are we done with the 80s yet? And then I have to look and go, oh no, there were more than 300 movies made in a decade.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah, just a little bit.
And can I interrupt this episode to plug past episodes of yours?
Sure.
Because, again, listen to it. What did you say the episode? It just came out today. What was it called? Bone Storm or something like that?
Oh, Metal Storm. Metal Storm.
Yes.
Buy me Bone Storm or go to hell.
That was a great episode. I loved listening. I got to tell you, your bonus episode before that, with the guy,
Jason Paul Collins. Yeah. Awesome.
That
dude.
was amazing. Again, people are hearing this in October. If you did not listen to that, go back, listen to that episode, because Slumber Party Massacre 2, I'm Not Alone, one of my favorite movies of all time.
What a wild movie.
Favorite movies of all time. It's up there with Black Narcissus. Like it's amazing. And listening to him talk behind the scenes, and this isn't a video podcast, right?
No.
Okay, cool. All right. He mentioned that one of the girls was not cooperative and didn't show up. I was so curious as to whether he ended up telling you guys who it was.
Oh, he sure did, but we'll have to save that for when we cut the recording.
I'm not. No, we could do hand jet. Like the thing that I realized, because I went back and I watched it, I don't think Crystal Bernard or Kimberly MacArthur were in that. So I was just curious as to, I guess I'm assuming it's one of them, but I was just
interesting theory.
Oh, okay. I was just really curious
J-Lo
to know. All right.
Another rumor about her being difficult.
It was a really wonderful episode. And like I said, I love that. So anytime I get to listen to anyone talk about those 3 films, because I'll defend the third one, but I think basically just because I want it to be a great series. I think that's why I defend it.
I think so
honestly,
too.
It's a great series of films. So
it's a fascinating series. I kind of went through the whole trilogy just in anticipation of talking to Jason about that. And like, it's a wild ride. I hugely recommend it. And Jason was an awesome guy. He gave us so much cool insight. So definitely check that episode out. And thank you so much for plugging that.
Yeah,
Good Times Great Movies is the best. It continues to be amazing. Like you guys have been doing it for so long. You guys have such an inherent chemistry, and it's just such a delight to listen to every week.
Well, thank you guys. And if you're looking to listen to episodes, Jared, we should have you on sometime. Steve, you
Would
came
love
on
it.
to talk about Body Double, right?
Body Double,
Oh,
yeah.
forever,
So I
forever
already
ago.
kind of ate
No,
Jared's
no,
lunch
that's
a little bit
okay.
on that one, but yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I swear to
that
God,
was
it's like you've got like a Ramona Flowers bag or something like just off screen, Jared, because people don't see it at home, but Jared, like every time we mention a movie, he like reaches off screen and brings back like a Blu-ray or a vinyl or something.
That
He's
is
got, like,
impressive.
yeah, he just got
If
like a
I'm
secret
if
wall.
I'm ever gonna show a film, we recently did the Initiation, the Daphne Zuniga film.
Clue Gulliger is in that.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I have to search my shelves. I have to grab it far in advance. I have to make sure it's right there staring at me or I'll forget. That's pretty impressive, Jared. Very nice.
Thank you. And I have to say, the plugging our own show in the middle of an episode was a bit unorthodox, but very much appreciated. And I think it's something that we're going to make a fixture on the show from now on. So even if our guest has never listened to the show, we're going to force them to plug a past episode.
It's a new segment we're calling Kiss the Ring.
I just felt bad for forgetting Crawl Space. I was like, how can I make up for that?
You've more than made up for it. But you know what? This is probably a good opportunity to get back into the movie we're talking about today, which is not Crawl Space. It is 1988's Catacombs. So, Steve, why don't you fire off a few stats about this movie for us?
Hey, why don't I? Why don't I? That's the big question. Catacombs, aka Curse 4, The Ultimate Sacrifice. We'll get into that. It was released May 14th, 1988. It's written and directed by David Schmoller, and it stars Timothy Van Patten, Laura Schaefer, Jeremy West, Vernon Dobchev, Theodore Chialopin Jr., Brett Porter, and the great Ian Abercrombie. This is one of the many films from the late Empire era that is credited as the last film to be shot during the Empire era. It's really kind of hard to pin that one down. A lot of different companies have claimed to do, or a lot of different films have claimed to do this. The timeline is muddled, but you can say, I think safely, that this is one of the movies that got screwed over the most by the studio getting shut down. We just talked about Pulse Pounders, which is a movie that just actually got killed because of that. This one got screwed almost as bad. This is, of course, the return to Empire films from David Schmoller. We've talked about him many times. He was coming off the aforementioned Crawl Space with Klaus Kinski. Listen to our episode on that if you want to hear the absolutely insane behind-the-scenes story of that episode. It's
Doug, listen to that episode.
Wait a second.
Doug.
Hold on. I'll grab my phone and I'll find it right now.
I mean, it's a wild story, but David Schmoller has proven to be kind of one of our more reliable directors that we've encountered on this show. He's the director of, in addition to Crawl Space, he did Tourist Trap, and he did the very first Puppet Master movie. So he is pretty fundamental to the basis of this show. And this movie's kind of his weird lost movie in between. Now, this movie was completed. It was being set up for a theatrical release, but bureaucratic issues led to it getting buried. To the point where you can only find it now through some very deep back channels. Now, this movie made its debut at Cannes in 1988. It would be in the basement at Cannes, the infamous buyer's market in the basement at Cannes, where all of the non-prestige stuff goes to get a buyer. Charles Band had been very, very successful there. And people always think like that's an exaggeration or something, like, oh yeah, they're at Cannes down in the basement. It's like, no, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, that's where Reanimator was.
Yeah.
That was the market screening where they said, hey, Roger Ebert, come watch this batshit movie. And he did. And, probably no small part in, getting the word on that one out.
Oh yeah, no, definitely very helpful. I like to imagine it like it's that market in Hellboy 2, just like there's a bunch of weird creatures like hawking things and there's like brick walls everywhere. Yeah. I think it'd be pretty cool. Either way, it made its debut. It got some like kind of kind early notices, but then because of the studio collapse, it got put on the shelf for the next 5 years. When it finally got a small VHS release in August of 1993, it was under the title Curse 4, The Ultimate Sacrifice, which begs the question, what the fuck is Curse? All right, now Curse is a 1987 adaptation of the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Color Out of Space, a very famous space invasion story where they made a movie of it with Nicolas Cage a few years ago. It's directed by the actor David Keith, and it stars a young Will Wheaton, which, like, you tell me all that stuff and it sounds like it kind of rips, but then you realize, like, okay, I'm a major horror nerd. It's got all these elements and I've never heard of this movie. It's probably not great. And that seemed to be kind of the critical consensus of it. It made like barely enough money to like qualify as a hit, and then it did okay on VHS. So they started attaching the name Curse to various different like low budget projects, whether they were related
It's
or
kind of
not.
hilarious because that movie, which I'm sure was intended to be a standalone movie, is actually called The Curse.
Right.
But then the is dropped from all of the sequels and subsequent unrelated movies that have been plugged into the franchise.
Well, it was cleaner, you dropped the. But yeah, that's the thing. We got a couple of these. This was the Cloverfield of its day, because we get two other unrelated films. There's Curse 2, The Bite, sometimes just called The Bite, which is a killer snake movie starring Jill Schoelen and Jamie Farr, the Dream Team. And then there's Curse 3, Blood Sacrifice, which is sometimes called Panga. It stars Christopher Lee, and I believe it's the only film in the entire series to feature a curse. This one is actually about like a tribal voodoo curse. It's pretty retrograde kind of movie, but it's if that's what you're looking for. So Catacombs itself is not explicitly about a curse. I think you can make the leap. It's about demonic possession. It's about ancient prophecy and stuff like that. But all of this is just to kind of preface that, like I mentioned, we had a pretty hard time watching this movie to the point where we had to resort to the very own can basement of the internet, Daily Motion, one of my just absolute least favorite websites of all time. Yep. Basically your last resort if you are looking for a hard to find movie. You go to Daily Motion, you're going to get it in extremely compromised quality with an overabundance of AI generated ads, usually for languages that you do not speak. And one of just the absolute most dog shit interfaces I've ever seen on a video streaming platform. Apologies if the owner of Daily Motion is a listener to this show, but in likelihood, you're probably in court right now.
I mean, I will say I feel personally attacked right now, not because I have to do with Daily Motion, but because I was instructed, Steve cannot watch this movie, Doug. You have to help us. So I was the one that said, here it is. It's all I got. Sorry.
No. That was all there's available. That really is. There was a DVD release a couple years ago that is out of print and like pretty impossible to find unless you want to shell out like, what is it, like $50 or $60 for a Blu-ray or something?
Yeah, it's like $50 for a used Blu-ray. I have to tell you that aside from the nonstop ads, I never watched a movie for recording for this show with a tighter butthole than I did with this one, just waiting to see how my computer would crash out by some kind of like pop-up or virus or something that was inevitably going to happen. I would have been more comfortable if I watched this movie on Pornhub.
Wow.
Genuinely, yeah.
So you're telling me right now the Blu-ray I have is worth $50?
It is.
Listen, listeners, hit me up. I am more than willing to part with the Catacombs for a fair price.
Hey, that's fair. I mean, it was difficult to track down, and because of the unreliable nature of our platform and the various problems with internet connections and multiple restarts and stuff like that, we only kind of got the movie piecemeal. So I don't know if either of us watched the movie 100% all the way through. So take all that with a grain of salt. Please let us know. Please be known. That's why, Doug, it's appropriate that you thought you were coming on for a different episode, because we didn't fully none of us are on our A game today as well.
I think I got 99% of the movie.
Okay.
All of us are making the best of it.
I was going to say, listen, I will gladly fill in the gaps, but also my attention during the watching of this fell precipitously.
I kind of get the sense that like I might have benefited by having 15 to 20 minutes cut out throughout various parts of this movie. I think it might have helped with the pacing issues a little bit, because I will say this right at the top, I thought this was kind of a cool movie. Okay. I think there was some good stuff. It's not like super groundbreaking, but David Schmoller is a good director. He's got a good way of framing a shot and a good way of building tension. And there's a couple of really batshit moments in this that I think are pretty transgressive and pretty cool for an Empire era movie. And I generally liked what I saw here. It's just kind of a dog shit way to watch this movie.
Well, and another thing about this movie, in addition to David Schmoller having directed it, there was, I believe, an original draft of the script, or at least in the idea, of something similar that was written by C. Courtney Joyner. And then what happened was basically David Schmoller, I think, borrowed a lot of the stuff that C. Courtney Joyner had already written, and then gave himself the pseudonym of Giovanni DeMarco as the writer of this movie, but it actually is
Good pseudonym.
David
Great.
Schmoller.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, if you're gonna listen, you know what? Like, the when in Rome, never
Yeah.
more appropriate to say.
Literally, they are in
than
Rome.
now. But I think so. Some of the writing, and we kind of agree as a rule that C. Courtney Joyner, probably one of the strongest writers of the Empire and Full Moon stuff. I mean,
Definitely.
mostly Full Moon. I feel like we didn't hear a ton about him until Puppet Master 3, but in the early 90s, he's got fingerprints in a lot of some of the better Full Moon projects.
He really
And so this would have been really early.
Yeah, he really understands genre tropes like in a way that not many other Full Moon writers do, and he really has a lot of fun playing with those. So yeah, that's a, you can see some strong bones there. And I think Schmoller does a good job as a writer here as well. And the basic setup of this is that there is a demonic presence that's buried underneath an abbey, and it's trying to break out. And as it's doing so, it's kind of slowly corrupting all the different monks that are in this facility. And we get some real wild characters. I think my particular favorite was a performance by Jeremy West as brother Marius, who is the Bible thumping, fire and brimstone crazy guy.
Yeah.
He's just got an unbelievable face and looks so distinctive. And I looked him up and it's this guy does not have many film credits at all. I think he's primarily a theater guy, but yeah, he hasn't appeared in anything since 2007, still with us, but yeah, really distinctive and really cool, very fun performance. And of course, we get the return and the final film performance from Timothy Van Patten. Now, he was the lead in our movie Zone Troopers that we covered a couple years ago, or it came out a few years before this. We covered it maybe a year ago. And as we came to learn from that is the same Timothy Van Patten who would go on to be one of the most acclaimed and accomplished television directors of all time. He co-wrote the script for Pine Barrens, for The Sopranos, for God's sake. He worked on every HBO show. He's a major deal, hugely Emmy nominated, and a very accomplished filmmaker.
So I enjoy Class of 1984, and I think he's very good in that film.
Yeah,
that's right. He is in that. Yeah, that's a fun movie. Yeah. That movie's cool.
Watching this, I think it's great that he's behind the camera now. I really do think he is the weak link in this movie and I don't even know that it's him. I think I'm not sure what kind of character he's playing. He looks like a fucking dork. I don't understand.
I didn't really understand his purpose in there, his character's purpose in this. Yeah, I think he was kind of left adrift a little bit by that,
Well, I think the problem stems from the fact that Tim Van Patten, if you put Tim Van Patten in a movie, the setting of that movie immediately goes from a monastery in Italy to Bensonhurst. It is South Brooklyn right away. 1 minute you're hanging out with priests in this seminary, the next minute you're having a square slice at L&B Spumoni Gardens. That he just does that. And for Zone Troopers it was fine because that's kind of the character he was playing, like a New Yorker, and he's kind of a high energy, kind of bubbly and funny. And I think Class of 1984 he's good. I think he was on, if I'm not mistaken, he was on, and this is really going to date us as men of a certain age, I think he was on The White Shadow, which was a basketball show.
I don't know that either.
In the early 80s. Yeah, it was about a high school basketball team and their coach. I think he was on that. And then he also, hilariously, if you've ever seen them cut into 2 films for Mystery Science Theater, it was a television show called The Master with Tim Van Patten and Lee Van Cleef, which they then cut into Master Ninja, which they did.
Okay, that's where I really, really know him from, and I didn't even look him up. I just knew him from Class of 1984. But yeah, okay, makes sense.
In that show, he is indecipherable. You can't understand what he's saying. His accent is so thick. He seems so miscast and so out of place. And I feel like yeah, we're getting to the point now where like finally, he was sort of a Nepo baby, and it was like,
Mm-hmm.
you've got talent probably somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll find it. And he found it behind the
Mhm.
camera. I mean, yeah, besides Pine Barrens, 20 episodes of The Sopranos, a number
Wow.
of episodes of a lot of other HBO shows. I
Yeah.
mean, really, really highly decorated, really talented guy, seems like a good
Mhm.
guy, but he just has a specific like cadence and um dialect and intonation in the way that he speaks that I find it's like really damaging sometimes to try to put him into periods where he
Mhm.
wouldn't make sense. And I liked this movie quite a bit actually, and I do feel like that was probably the thing that didn't
Yeah.
work most for me.
Yeah.
And I think the thing I kept, and I shouldn't be thinking about this while I'm watching the movie, and I think that may have taken away from this. Strangely enough, I thought he should have played the part of the woman. He's the fish out of water. It would have made way more sense for him to sort of play that role than whatever he's doing. Like, I didn't know if he was supposed to be like the cool hip priest, but he's not. It almost seems like they just said, can you tamp down whatever it is you're doing right now as much as you possibly can, and we'll make this thing work? Because Steve, I agree with you. I don't think I'm quite as on board as Jared. There's a lot that works in this movie. I think this movie looks very good.
It does.
The
Yeah.
cinematography is good. I think the set pieces are wonderful. The catacombs look fantastic. I think you're surrounding him with a good bunch of like professional actors.
Yeah.
And there were moments in this movie that were funny, like the priest that's wearing the headphones and the guy shows up for batteries and he turns around. Like, there's little bits of levity that work in this movie. My main issue with this, and this comes up sometimes when I'm reviewing movies, and I hope it's not on me, I really had a hard time understanding why what was happening is happening. And the fight at the invisible fight at the end, it just, I don't know. I don't need to see a fist fight at the end of your demonic possession movie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there is definitely stuff that I enjoyed about it. I think there's a really interesting moment where the demon possesses Jesus Christ on the crucifix.
Awesome.
He pulls out his nails and then stabs a monk to death with it. I'm like, this is some Ken Russell shit. This is like, this is some transgressive kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm almost wondering this is why this got shelved for so long, because it's like, you literally have a Jesus Christ slasher movie. And I'm like, whoa, okay, they went for it. That's pretty crazy.
That scene alone, one of my favorite individual scenes in a movie we covered so far on the show.
So good.
Wild. Yeah. Really cool. And like it was kind of a ballsy move to put into this movie that was like just completely buried. But
and just watching it, the amount of time they show that the crucifixion statue, and the whole time I'm like, that's a dude. That guy's doing an amazing job, but that's clearly a guy who's going to come to life, and you're just waiting and you're waiting, and the payoff is better than you think it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's creepy. When you see it start to move in the background, the way the shot's like framed and where the focus is, I'm like, that's effective. That looks awesome. And I think that sort of brings me to, I don't want to say my general feeling about Schmoller, because I think, I'm a big fan of Tourist Trap. I think there are things about the first Puppet Master that work. There's things about Crawl Space and Netherworld that work. And there are other Schmoller stuff we've covered too. I almost said Eliminators, but that's not a Schmoller one.
That's not him. That's Manoogian.
That's Manoogian.
Yeah.
But like, to me, I think what separates maybe, so I kept getting parallels to The Pit and the Pendulum, like Stuart Gordon's Pit and the Pendulum.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it's it's an Inquisition
probably shot in the same
storyline.
castle. Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, no. That was the thing, is when I was reading about this, was that this movie was shot actually in an old monastery. This wasn't shot in like the Italian castle. That was one cool thing about the location of this movie. Is I was thinking the same thing, that it was just utilizing the Italian castle for setting, but it actually wasn't. But Pit and the Pendulum, similarly to this movie, has these moments of levity. Like, I enjoyed when you're just kind of watching like these priests behind the scenes just being dudes, like, and Pit and the Pendulum has a lot of that too, where it's like they're all very like self-serious 95% of the time, but then you get these little glimpses into when they're kind of like silly or goofy, and they
Yeah.
recognize it. And I think Stuart Gordon's Pit and the Pendulum is quite good. I think to me the biggest difference is that like Stuart Gordon and David Schmoller are both good at setting atmosphere. But I feel like the Jesus coming down from the crucifix is a really eerie, creepy scene. There's another couple of moments where I thought it actually was kind of creepy and suspenseful also. To me, the biggest flaw that this movie has is like that David Schmoller doesn't kind of then just go for it and lean in with like the gore or the kills or stuff like that. Because I think, there are absurd moments in this movie, which I think are by design, but then it feels like he is telegraphing kind of when he's going to get to a violent scene and then doesn't feel like fully committed to those scenes. And I have kind of an issue with that because like if Stuart Gordon was making this, like the creepiness of that scene would work, but then the payoff of it would be way more visceral than what we get in this. And I think that's my biggest problem. I quite liked this movie for what it was, but I think besides Tim Van Patten in that role, my biggest qualm with the movie is that the violence isn't turned up high enough as it should be.
Yeah.
Because we're taking an unorthodox approach to the Inquisition and this monastery with these priests. So just kind of like go for it, because I'm reminded of other things. I'm reminded of the Pit and the Pendulum. When I see, a creepy Jesus, I'm reminded of Exorcist 3. And then it just didn't really deliver in those areas for me personally.
Agreed.
But I thought I was more positive about. I thought, given how hard it was to physically watch with how many interruptions there was like a part maybe like 3 minutes into the movie where I was like, I might end up really salty for this recording. But then I don't know, I was like, this possessed like a demon who's captive during the Inquisition time in the beginning, who kind of looked like Edgar Winter, or also kind of looked like the hag mask from Curtains. I was like, there was a moment where there was like a jump scare that actually kind of worked, and I was like, okay. And I was also realizing like I'm watching this on not the best presentation or format, but this is actually like pretty well shot. I was already starting to get a sense of what it looked like. And I'm glad that you brought up the cinematography for this movie, because Sergio Salvati, we've talked about, I mean, from episode 1, because he shot the first Puppet Master. So we've been talking about this guy for a long time. Did a lot of the shooting in Italy. Anytime you get the person who shot the Lucio, I'm making myself laugh just now because I want to give a shout out to another podcast. I don't do this that often, but if you've ever listened to the horror comedy podcast, Queens of NC-17, they covered the movie The Psychic a few months ago. And one of the hosts, Andy, who I find to be like one of the funniest people in all of podcasts, kept referring to Lucio Fulci as a Luci Macucci. And I almost just said that without meaning to. And I had to pull myself back and say, no, his name is Lucio Fulci. And if you're the person who shot, the Gates of Hell trilogy, you get kind of a pass from me, because I really love those movies and Zombie and other Fulci stuff too. He shot, I think, and given that, Schmoller is a director with some sense of vision, like I think, this thing it looks really good. And that was what hooked me. I was like, okay, this is going to be very annoying that I'm going to have an ad every 5 to 7 minutes probably popping up. And it may ruin my overall experience, but I don't know. Like, I enjoyed this. And, Doug, if it wasn't for the fact that Cellar Dweller's on that DVD and I have it in the Empire of Screams box set, I might have propositioned you for that Blu-ray.
All right, I'll just trade you. You send me the box set, I'll give you this double Blu-ray.
Yes.
I mean, I'm with you. Like, and I think setting it in a monastery is an interesting setting for a horror film. You don't really get a lot of that. Like, I'm always going to respond at least a little bit to religious horror. It's always a favorite subgenre of mine. And this one's leaning into that to a degree, I think. I think there's definitely room to explore this main character and make him, I don't know, maybe like a Father Merrin style, like, lost his faith, wrestling with something, needs to reaffirm. Like, there are character arcs that you can build into that character to make him more interesting. But you have an interesting setting. Like, I like anything that takes place in this kind of, well, very literally monastic society in which, they have their own kind of hierarchy and rules, and like, their worldview's been limited to this degree where it's like it's kind of a microcosm in a really interesting way. And I think that's always an interesting way to approach it. Yeah, I just think this probably got a little screwed by 5 years of sitting on the shelf.
Sure.
I'm sure it was re-edited and retouched a couple of times, but there were moments of this that reminded me, and I mean this in good ways and bad ways. It reminded me a lot of Michael Mann's The Keep, which is a movie that I am just infinitely fascinated by. I think it's a broken movie that is literally unfinished, but it's fascinating and like so watchable and really kind of beautiful in its own weird way. And I think this movie kind of reminded me of The Keep a lot in both good ways and bad.
Yeah.
So
it feels oddly like it feels isolated in the way that The Keep does, but it also feels lifted. It's convincing. You guys have watched enough Full Moon / Empire movies to know when it just feels phony. It feels like the walls are shaky, and people are coated with makeup, and they don't have the correct accents or anything like that.
Yeah.
It is kind of fascinating to me to know that this was filmed in a monastery, because I don't feel, while I enjoy that, I don't get to feel like I got that sense watching it. It almost feels like they didn't play with maybe what they had available to them as much as they probably should. But again, I don't know how big this monastery was.
But I think that's
really
indicative.
tiny.
That's indicative of so many of these productions,
Yeah.
because it's like they may have a lavish shooting location, but they don't have a lot of time, and they don't have a lot of access to resources, and so a lot of times they're handcuffed by that stuff, whether it's budgetary, whether it's time, anything like that. I will say there were a lot of burning crosses. I mean, not since the Like a Prayer video did I see a character surrounded by so many burning crosses, which, again, like, I thought it set a pretty cool mood. There was a scene in the movie where I believe Tim Van Patten and Laura Schaefer were together, kind of surrounded by all the crosses on fire, and it was like really gorgeously composed and looked super awesome. And I was going to say one last thing about The Keep, but I suppose it's two things. One, the soundtrack to The Keep slaps, and also the original score, it's fucking great. Oh, yeah. But also, I was going to say, we talked about how much we like the performance of Jeremy West in this. I think the only person I would have allowed to sub in here and had the same energy is Scott Glenn.
Yeah, see, there you go. Glenn from this era would have fit right in,
Yeah.
You need a nice craggy guy. All of these guys, to borrow an anachronistic phrase, not one of them has seen a cell phone. So, they absolutely look like they belong in this kind of isolated society. So I think they strike all the right balances with that. It's definitely got some major pacing issues, like, the ad situation or the Daily Motion situation notwithstanding. Like, I think losing like a few minute chunks of like build up in between was only to the film's benefit. But yeah, it's just got these really weird little transgress moments. We didn't even mention like the monk who is hallucinating and like looking forward to having sex with God when he dies.
That's Fyodor Shalyapin Jr. is the name.
Yeah,
of the
Russian.
Actor. I might have butchered that a little bit, but he's a Russian actor who had been acting in a really long time. And speaking of Fulci, is also in Inferno, or not? That's Argento.
That's Argento, yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah, he's in Inferno. He is somebody who acted from 1926
crazy
until 1992.
Yeah, that scene was amazing. That scene was one where I was just captivated. I was like, this is a Shakespearean soliloquy about regretting not having sex with a woman when you were like 16. It's so wonderful and so convincing. And I really did enjoy every one of these monk characters. I thought they were great. It was kind of one of those things where when I'm watching, I'm like, I kind of watch a TV series about these guys. I don't need Van Patten. I don't need this woman showing up. Just give me a hilarious monk TV series, and I'm all on board. Not the TV series Monk. I've never seen that. I have a feeling it's not about a monk. I have a
Would
question.
it
for
be
you.
better if it was? That's the thing.
It might. I have a question for you guys, and this is the dumbest question because maybe you weren't sure. So the flower that Mr. Pitt gives to that young Italian
Yes.
woman, and then she brings at the end and gives to the happy couple. Was that a fake? Like, was that supposed to be a fake flower? Because they show tight shots of this thing, and I'm like, I see threading, and it looks plastic. And then I was like, did I miss a funny line at the beginning of Mr. Pitt talking about a fake flower, or no?
No, I don't think so. I think
know.
that was one of those instances where it's like, certainly these cameras are not high definition.
Okay. It was just one of those things where I'm like, this is so obvious. I had to have missed a hilarious line at one point, but no. Okay.
Yeah.
And what a dumb question about this movie.
I mean, I don't know. I can't ever assume that they're using real anything in one of these movies. You know, there's an extra cost.
But you can hide it. Like you can really hide that better than they did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, do we have any final thoughts on Catacombs, aka Curse 4, the Ultimate Sacrifice? Do we feel inspired to watch the other Curse movies? Have we seen the other Curse movies? I've never seen any of them.
No, it's fine. You go ahead first, Doug. You're our guest.
All I got is, honestly, I think I can work backwards because at some point, I assume I was at a flea market because on my shelf, I have Curse 3. I've never cracked that thing open.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was, I see a sticker on it that says $2. But I have not seen the second. I have not seen the first. And I have no idea how long I've had that. And I've had no inclination to open it until maybe now.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen the movie The Curse, the original one, at some point. I can't tell you specifics, but I could tell you at the rate in which I was renting VHS tapes and just kind of giving charity to any horror seeming movie at the time when stuff was popping up on cable. I feel like I probably saw that movie. I'll tell you, I'm going to seek out Curse 2 because you can't sneak a Jill Schoelen movie in that period past me. I mean, somehow they did, but not anymore. I'm gonna remedy that. And I will say one of my final thoughts is like this really similarly to when we covered the movie Spellcaster on the show. I think this is the kind of movie that even though there's nothing inherently late 80s about it. Like that movie had Adamant and
I was going to say, is that the movie that teases Adamant being a main player and he isn't?
Well, Doug, if you listened to our show,
I listened to it.
Know that.
No, that's why I said that.
But there's nothing inherently placing it in the late 80s and nothing inherently early 90s that says that this couldn't find a distributor or market or something like that. But it is one of the like Credit Lioness ones that really got shelved and never really saw the light of day. But now that I think about it, like they really missed an opportunity here. I mean, if they would have just waited a year, they could have gotten a bunch of these cast members back together and just had them chant, and they could have had a Billboard top 100 album. You guys remember that? You remember the chanting? The Benedictine
Oh my God!
Oh, yeah.
I remember the chanting. Yeah. Oh my God.
The best
and
thing
they set them to like the funky like house beats or something. Yeah, I remember those.
The craziest thing, it did really well. The craziest thing about that album was that it was one of those crossover CDs that it didn't matter what your music taste was. It crossed over into like everyone's CD collection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it was like I had friends' parents who listened to only classic rock and it was in their collection, or friends, top 40 radio or oldies. And then like, my parents were always sort of current with music trends and staying up on things and into current music for the most part. They had that CD, and I mean, I think I listened to it too. I don't know what the appeal was.
Wow. It's a real Macarena of its time.
It was out there. Yeah. Everybody was slowly swaying to that one. Yeah. Just bopping back and forth and just being like, man, we have a good economy right now. Yeah.
But just to go back to what I was saying before about how this movie feels like it's missing out on the violence, and it's like David Schmoller has a command of some of the creepy elements and some of the atmosphere. Atmosphere, I think, is a good word to use when describing this movie, but it doesn't. There's no real sort of cathartic payoff the way there is in a Reanimator or From Beyond or in Stuart Gordon's Pit and the Pendulum or Castle
Yeah.
Freak or Dagon
Yeah.
or any of those movies. And I feel like, Schmoller was able to do some of the things he does well, reasonably well, and then some of his shortcomings were kind of magnified in this movie. I mentioned before about the C. Courtney Joyner thing. I think what happened was maybe C. Courtney Joyner was attached to this and left at some point, and I think it was to do Prison, like to write Prison.
Oh, I thought you meant like to
And
do time. I'm like, whoa,
yes,
whoa,
he
Jesus,
did. He
no,
did a
plot
stint.
twist.
Well, I
and
gotta
then
go
came
do
back.
some prison for a few years.
Yeah, did a bid and then came back and wrote Puppet Master 3.
Yeah,
No, he wrote Rennie Harlan's Prison.
yeah.
And in case you're wondering, Doug, yes, we have an episode about that.
I know that.
And I think Prison is one of the ones that, when you look at that movie separately, the way you look at Reanimator or From Beyond or Pit and the Pendulum, that's one where it's like, oh, all this stuff works. Like this is a director with vision where is kind of firing on all cylinders, where it's like it's well written, it's well shot, but it's also like batshit crazy and over the top when it needs to be. Whereas I feel like this one is tame in those areas.
Yeah.
And so, like, to know that C. Courtney Joyner went and worked on Prison, he presumably, I would say, probably made the right decision, because that's one that's well revered, and although strangely hard to find in the States too.
Yeah.
I know like 88
Yeah.
Films or someone put out a Blu-ray or 4K of it recently, but it's region B and it's in the UK. And then there was a Scream Factory one that they put out a couple years ago, I think is out of print.
That was forever ago that they put that thing out.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate, because that's a movie that I would love to have in my collection, but it's like really hard to find. But I just think that this is an effort that has a lot of atmosphere. It has a lot of these kind of quirky moments of levity where you get to see these priests behind the scenes. And I like Steve, I enjoy movies about religious guilt. I'm not a religious person in any capacity, and I'm always fascinated by people who are very religious and how they manifest things around them, and how that triggers, feelings of guilt and loss and grief and stuff like that. So anytime that's the backdrop, especially for a horror movie, it usually has my attention, and maybe more so than the two of you guys. This one did have my attention when the actual movie was playing and not a commercial for AI.
Or a Filipino McDonald's commercial. I need to know how to pronounce some of those words.
Can I mention just one more thing about this movie
Sure.
before we move on? It's a set piece that we haven't talked about, and I'm assuming it was perhaps a trope to a certain degree before this, but since then I've seen it so many times. The idea of using flash bulbs to light your way through darkened environments. I thought it was very, very effective in the Catacombs. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And, I can't think of anything that really used it before this. I'm sure there's plenty, but it was really great.
Well, what I think of is not exactly for the same intended use, but where my brain went for that as a technique. The immediate place that I thought of is the way that Jimmy Stewart fights off Raymond Burr in what do you mean? What you call it? Rear Window.
Yeah, you're right.
Good
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, like that's, to me, it's like with the lights off and then shooting the flash bulbs at him to startle him is what I thought of. And I mean,
this made me think about Saw. When the guy's in his apartment and trying to but I thought it was really great here. Like I said, the sets are fantastic. Like all the Catacomb stuff was great. That room, that mural, I thought all that stuff looked amazing. I just thought this thing had a bit of a for something that clocks in at a little under an hour and a half, the soggy middle felt pretty soggy on this one.
Well, sorry, Steve, one thing that I think is noteworthy to point out, like a lot of the David Schmoller movies that we've covered, we do get what I think is a muted and purposefully nuanced and underplayed, but appropriate score from Pino Donaggio
Oh yeah, I forgot
in
to
this
even shout
movie.
out Pino. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's awesome, and his scores are always so unique. And to hear, the motifs, I almost said something. Fuck it, I'm gonna say it. I I find, and I'm not comparing the two because there's no point in comparing the two. I find that despite obviously having composed a lot of incredibly famous, notable, immediately identifiable, I should say, identifiable
Yeah.
works. I got there. I find like you can very easily pick apart a lot of John Williams scores and go, okay, here he's pulling from Shostakovich, and here he's pulling from Mahler. He loves to pull stuff from Mahler. And
Right.
it's like, but he does make it his own, but he
Yeah.
occasionally also like borrows from himself for like motifs too. And I'm not trying to shit on fucking John Williams. Like, people know what things are. I mean, yeah, the two notes from Jaws are the fourth movement from Dvorak's New World Symphony, but everybody hears it and thinks Jaws. So, like, he's fucking John Williams. Like, I'm not trying to take away any of his legacy. But I will say one of the things I love about Pino Donaggio as a composer is that he could go from something like Carrie, which he did in 76 for De Palma, which is an incredible score. And then only a couple years later for Tourist Trap for David Schmoller,
Right.
one of the most bizarre music scores, but it works
Yeah.
for the movie.
Oh,
And
it
then-
works. It's so I don't even want to say out of place because that makes it seem like it doesn't work. It's surprising
Yeah.
to
Right.
hear in that movie, but it's great.
Yeah. And then when he went on to work, do other stuff with De Palma, I mean, he has the trilogy of Dress to Kill, Blowout, and Body Double,
Right.
which are all incredible scores.
And one of those movies is good.
Yes.
Blowout.
Well, thank you. Blowout is
Sorry.
one of my like top 3 favorite movies of all time, but I will die on the hill that all 3 of them are good movies.
I know,
and we
I know,
have to
I
have
know.
that
I'm
conversation.
I've kind of
just
had
starting to
that
stir up shit.
transformation with Body Double where it was like my go-to kind of like good bad movie for a while, to the point where I finally just had to admit I really liked the movie. And I'm just like, no, look, I'm watching this for me. I really like it. I'm going to acknowledge how sleazy and crazy it is, but I like it.
They're on different levels to me, like where I think Blowout is the moment where like all of De Palma's De Palma-ness and the ability to like tell a good gripping story really comes together. Probably maybe the best it ever has. That's like one of my top 5 all-time favorite movies. But I genuinely really love Dress to Kill and Body Double also.
I've not seen Dress to Kill yet. I've actually not seen that one yet.
Pino Donaggio, excellent score in that movie, and he always surprises me with his scores. Like you said, a surprising score for Tourist Trap, and the where he goes in these things is surprising. And I think the right choice here is to downplay simplistic, pastoral,
Sure.
not overbearing, but totally serviceable for this particular movie. That was the one thing that was in my brain before to try to bring up Donaggio. So I brought it up now and after my final thoughts. But we do things the way we want here. We will not be beholden to any formula.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that about I think this means we've talked more about Catacombs / Curse for the Ultimate Sacrifice more than anybody else in history. So congrats to all of us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Doug, so much for coming back and for being on the show.
Of course.
Where can people find your amazing stuff?
Good Times, Great Movies. Wherever you get podcasts, we have a YouTube channel. Yeah, check out the show. You said it's October. In October, we are covering Night of the Creeps. Why has it taken us over 10 years to get to this movie?
There's Ramona Flowers
what is
again.
happening?
See, I'm telling you.
All right, if you can pull Primal Rage, I'll be very impressed.
I can.
Because we're going to talk about that. Speaking of
The Sega
movies
Genesis
that were
game,
made in Italy and about some sort of monkey virus and a bunch of college kids, it's hilarious. And that's Those types of movies are perfect for our show. Night of the Creep, yes, great. Primal Rage is spot on.
Yeah, I can't pull that one, but I reached for it before and wasn't able to do it before we segued. Have to throw
Okay, great.
There's a joke.
Tourist
Okay.
Trap Blu-ray up there into the camera. Doug, I want to ask, so like Good Times, Great
Sure.
Movies is an incredibly funny podcast. You have the mission statement of just going through
thank
like
you.
all the movies of the 1980s. What I'm gathering is that like a true cinephile,
Mhm.
you really like the movies of John Derek.
Yeah,
Of
that's
course.
really what it is. That is, God,
That
we
guy
did-
just has a cool vibe.
we did all of those Bo Derek movies. And we referred to it as Bo Derek Sember. And by the end, my co-host Jamie, she was so fucking mad. She was so angry. I don't even think she finished. Oh my, one of them, whatever the last one is.
Was Ghost Can't Do
Ghost
It?
Can't Do It is one of the worst
No,
movies ever
Ghost Can't
made.
Do It. Okay. This may be the hottest of takes. We came to the conclusion that Ghost Can't Do It was the best of those because
And
it was so ridiculous.
it might be.
It might be, and it's still one of the worst
Yeah.
movies ever made.
Well,
There are, I mean, it has a
Bolero-
really unfortunate cameo in
yeah.
Ghost
Oh no,
Can't Do It.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
But Bolero and Tarzan the Ape Man are like, you'd be hard pressed to find two worse
Yeah.
movies in the 80s than those.
Should be illegal.
yeah,
Should actually be illegal.
Bolero. I think Bolero might be the worst thing we ever watched. She
Wow.
didn't even finish it. I had to cover the last half of that movie on my own and just watch the shocked look on her face as I described scenes to her.
Yeah.
That was.
Oh my God, you must have felt like an impotent matador.
No, I felt like a creep. I was like, "Oh, Jamie, let me describe this
Well, so then you were
bizarre
getting
and
in the spirit of
uncomfortable
John
sex
Derek.
scene to you." What was that?
I said, so you were getting in the spirit of John Derek then.
yes,
was-
yes, just becoming a
I
big
had
old
to-
creep.
I had to try.
I said that by design because I wanted you to
Yeah.
mention those episodes specifically, but like if somebody wanted to check out your very vast back catalog of episodes, like what do you think is a good jumping off point?
You know what? The one thing I tell most people is just start with something that you've seen. I know it sounds crazy because why would you listen to something else? But I know you guys bring up We Hate Movies all the time. I will listen to them regardless of whether I've seen the movie or not. I find it great. I'm going to say, and we'll stay in the world of Full Moon here. If you're going to jump in, listen to us talk about Intruder, listen to us talk about Troll. Those were, and Jamie doesn't watch horror movies. She does not like it. So when she can watch something that she never would have watched otherwise and has such a great time, it's so fun to listen to her talk about it. So yeah, check out those two. But God, there's a back catalog.
There sure is. It's a
Yeah.
pretty expansive back catalog. And if you look through and you scroll through and you look at those titles, you're going to find something that you love and can't wait to listen to.
Yeah.
If you're someone who can't wait to listen to this show every week, I first of all want to thank you from Steve and myself for supporting the show and showing up week after week. It's just, it's so great to get feedback on the show and know that there's an audience out there, that this, an episode like today's isn't just Steve and myself and Doug talking to each other, which, I mean, given the subject
be
matter,
fun.
like it could
I'm
have
all right
been.
with that.
But no, we're just so grateful for everyone. I will say this because this episode is coming out in October. Oh, that's right, guys. I forgot. Did you? We didn't even mention how it's the Halloween season right now.
It sure is. Welcome
Yeah,
to Halloween.
yeah. Feel
season.
that crisp fall
Oh,
air. It's certainly
love
not
it.
the dog days of August.
No, it smells like
sirree. It's,
pumpkin spice and not sweat.
Leaves.
yeah. So this episode is dropping.
I'm eating the leaves.
What's that? This episode is dropping on Friday, October 3rd, which means in a little over a week, you will be able to see, if you're in the Cleveland area, you will be able to see Steve and myself both at Charles Band's Church of Chills in Cleveland, Ohio on Saturday, October 11th. Just to be
Ooh.
clear, we are not doing anything professional there at this point, nor are we affiliated with the event in terms of, some kind of like panel or anything like that. We will be there as
No,
fans.
we're just literally going to be there. Yeah. Yeah.
You're just trying to steal memorabilia.
Yeah. We're just saying,
Exactly.
hey, if there are any listeners to the show who are also going to be there, pop up, say hi. We're the two guys.
Yeah, we
You'll
would love-
know us. We're two guys. We're probably the only two guys that are going to be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But please come by and say hi to us while we're there if you see us. And if you want to, let us know how you feel about the show and help spread the word, the best thing to do is to go on to whatever podcatcher you're using. If it has a function for rating and reviewing, drop us a 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. You can leave comments also on Spotify or email us at puppetmasterscastlefreaks@gmail.com. If you want to keep up with the show on like a daily basis with what we've got coming up, the best way to do that is Instagram. You can follow the show at puppetmasters_castlefreaks. You can follow me at _Giallo_Jared or Steve at Minotaur Matador. The show is available on YouTube, and we also update on our Facebook group and some other Facebook groups and on Threads and Blue Sky. But, it's a lot of promotion, and it's not the only show that Steve has to promote. So, Steve, what else would you like to take the opportunity to plug?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. I also have a show called Cinema Arcade. That is cinema and arcade mashed together. That's what we do on that show. We are watching movies and then playing the games based on those movies to see how they contrast, compare, detract, enhance, whatever the case may be. And of course, every October, we do an entire month of horror movies and video games, which is great because we get 5 weeks of that this time around. We get so much stuff. So I think this week, as we're tuning in, you should be able to listen to our episode on From Dusk Till Dawn, one of my favorite sleazy movies of the 1990s, a real blast of a movie. Very weird video game, hard to track down. Awesome. And then we're going to hear stuff this month, including Halloween, the original classic, which will be debuting on Halloween, featuring one Mr. Jared Hornbeck. We're going to be talking about that certain little movie. And then we've got Elvira, we've got Rocky Horror Picture Show, we've got World War Z. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. So in addition to all the many weird and wonderful movies that we've covered recently. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out next week because we have a movie from 2002 called Dead and Rotting. Stinky. That's what that movie should be called. But I don't know anything about this movie. I'm excited to talk about it, though.
Yeah, and it's one of the fun times where we're going to have a guest on the show who is somehow connected to the production of that movie. So look forward to lots of fun behind the scenes stories about production stories about that movie, and maybe also some other full moon feature stuff that this person has worked on in the past. So it's always great when we get people directly involved with the movies on. Also, it gives the episode a completely different feeling from when we have other podcasters or writers and stuff on. Not better, but different. All of our episodes, I like to think, are pretty great. And we think you'll agree if you hang out with us next week for Dead and Rotting. So thank you again to Doug McCambridge. Go check out Good Times, Great Movies, and find a movie that you've seen before and listen to their episode, preferably a full moon movie. And we will see you guys next time, unless we are fully dead and rotting before then.